माधव कुंज बिहारी हरि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यामुनतीरावनचारी यामुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिका श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा मई की जय। यमुना मई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, text number 33. Vyaktam Vibho Sthulam Idam Shariram Yenandriya Prana Mano Gunams Tvam Bhungshe Sthito Dhamani Parameshtye Avyakta Atma Purushaha Puranaha Vyaktam vibhostu lamidam shariram Yenendriya pranamano gunamstvam Bhunkshe stito dhamani parameshtye Avyakta atma purushah puranaha Vyaktam vibhostu lamidam shariram Yenendriya pranamano gunamstvam Bhunkshe stito dhamani parameshtye Avyakta atma purushah puranaha Vyaktam vibhostu lamidam shariram Yenendriya pranamano gunamstvam Bhunkshe stito dhamani parameshtye Avyakta atma purushah puranaha Vyaktam, manifested. Vibho, O my Lord. Sthulam, cosmic manifestation. Idam, this. Shariram, external body. Yena, by which. Indriya, the senses. Prana, the life air. Manaha, the mind. Gunan, transcendental qualities. Tvam, you. Bhunkshe, enjoy. Stitaha, situated. Dhamani, in your own abode. Parameshtye, the supreme. Avyaktaha, not manifested through ordinary knowledge. Atma, the soul. Purushaha, the supreme person. Puranaha, the oldest. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand your universal form within this cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the Supersoul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. Purport. It is said that the Absolute Truth appears in three features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Supersoul, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa. The cosmic manifestation is the gross body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enjoys the taste of the material mellows by expanding his parts and parcels. The living entities who are qualitatively one with him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, is situated in the Vaikuṇṭha planets, where he enjoys the spiritual mellows. Therefore, the one absolute truth, Bhagavan, pervades all by his material cosmic manifestation, the spiritual Brahman effulgence, and his personal existence as the Supreme Lord. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm going to maybe Chris, could you grab me? Well, maybe you would know where it is. There's a red book in the in the audio room that says it should say Vaishnava Samadhis in Vrindavan. I'll read about Narahari Sarkar Thakur at the end of the class. I'll just, first I'll speak on the Bhagavatam. So, we're continuing Hiranyakashipu's prayers to Lord Brahma. It seems that he's praying to Lord Brahma as if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It would be interesting to consult the commentaries of the Acharyas on this section to see. Thank you. Krish brought up yesterday in class about how, I think it was yesterday, about how it's possible that he might be slighting Krishna or Vishnu and I think Dravida Prabhu brought up that it might just be that he actually thinks that this is God. It'd be interesting to see what the Acharyas say about that, if anybody has it on hand. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada in the purport is kind of taking this verse, it seems as if it were a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's using this chance, this opportunity to, write about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the first sentence of the purport, the first sentence of the purport is kind of a paraphrase of a verse in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan itti shabdyate. Vedanti tat tattva vidas means that those who see the truth, those who are learned, they say tattvam yajganam advayam, that the truth is non-dual, is a non-dual substance manifesting in three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Translated here as, impersonal Brahman, localized Supersoul, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa, or God, is unlimited, and because he's unlimited, he has unlimited manifestations. He manifests himself in unlimited different ways. He has unlimited I guess features would be a more appropriate word. He has unlimited features. And these features are so great, are so vast that even Lord Brahma, who's being prayed to right now as the changeless, birthless, Supreme Brahman, the oldest, the personality of Godhead, even he can't understand them. He says, Manaso vapusho vacho vaibhavam tavagochara. He says, your glories are beyond my mind, body, and words. I think the door is locked there. So it's also stated in the Vedas and the Upanishads, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shriyate. Krishna has unlimited different Shaktis, unlimited different manifestations. So these Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the broad categories, you could say, are the root or the basis of all of those other ones. So within the, I would say Vedic tradition, but it's not some of them, well, I guess you could say Vedic tradition because they're all kind of, there's these 6 darshans, Shad darshans, which are in the Vedic tradition. Most of them are within the Vedic tradition. Some of them are within the Vedic tradition by, you could say, negation of the Vedas. So in that way, they are relative to the Vedas. But these Shad darshans are different ways that traditionally within Vedic culture or the people around Vedic culture saw the world. So there's Nyaya, Vaisheshika. I won't get into all of them, but there's Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Yoga, and Sankhya. So all these different philosophies, they have their own rishis who expounded them. They have their own, kind of, you could say, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Excuse me. Oh, anyway. I'm fasting, half-day fast, I just realized that. But, so anyway, they have their different Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, the way they see the world, the way they propose that one should act in the world, and then they have their own concept of how one should, or the ultimate state of existence. So, of course, we fall under Vedanta because we're studying, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada's commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. So hopefully we fall under the Vedanta category. Vedanta refers to the end of the Vedas. The end of the Vedas, well, more specifically, it refers to the Vedanta Sutras, those different philosophical traditions who interpret the Vedanta Sutras. In a general way, though, it refers to the end of the Vedas or the end of knowledge in general. So that's the concern of the Vedantic tradition. Now, even within Vedanta, there's been a great debate for the last several thousands of years or more than that on which of these features of Parabrahman, of the Supreme, is the ultimate feature. Now often it seems like we kind of, it doesn't seem like it's often emphasized that actually we're on the same team, in the sense, like if you look at it from the perspective of the darshans, actually, we're actually kind of on the same side as the Mayavadis in one sense. Of course, we consider them enemies of Krishna, and we kick them on the head with boot and everything. But from one perspective, actually, it's interesting. We are actually kind of on the same team. We're interpreting the same shastras. We just have radically different, of course, interpretations of that shastra. So, anyway, there's all these different Vedantic traditions based on different interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra. So ultimately, according to the Vaishnavacharyas, Bhagavan, as Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport, ultimately, the absolute truth is Bhagavan, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada says in this purport. Other traditions, other spiritual traditions, Vedantic traditions even, have incomplete results, which are generally obtained with much difficulty. Incomplete results means that they don't lead one to the ultimate platform of existence, although they might claim to, because they have misunderstandings of what that ultimate state of existence is. Almost every single, actually every single darshan, Vedic darshan, Vedic philosophy, has a concept of moksha, has a concept of some kind of liberation. And of course, there's a very wide variety of conceptions of moksha, especially when you get into like the Gnostic darshans or the atheistic darshans. Moksha can be anything from, well, Srila Prabhupada would quote this Charvaka Muni. Charvaka Muni, he's an atheist. He's still considered to be within, he's one of the Gnostic darshans, the atheistic darshans. His conception of moksha is literally just death. He's saying that death is moksha because there's nothing beyond the body, so moksha is ultimately just death. And in the meantime, you get a lot of ghee. Beg, borrow, or steal, as Srila Prabhupada would quote. So yeah, there's a wide variety of different conceptions of moksha. Impersonal liberation also. The Yoga Sutras have their particular conception of moksha. The Mimamsa, Sankhya, all these different, they have their own conceptions of moksha. Most of which consist of some kind of breaking down of the distinction between oneself and the universe. And they have different kind of flavors of this. But the Vedantic darshan, the concept of moksha, and other darshans as well, but specifically in Vedanta, because it comes up in Vedanta Sutra, it's based on the concept of returning to one's original state. Vedanta Sutra, in the Vedanta Sutra, this is one of the famous sutras, is Sampadhyavirbhava Svena Shabdat. Sampadhyavirbhava Svena Shabdat means that perfection is, this sutra actually refers to a verse in the Chandogya Upanishad, but it says that perfection is attained in accordance with this verse in the Chandogya Upanishad, which states Svena Rupa Abhinishpadyate. Svena Rupa Abhinishpadyate, which is a part of a larger verse. But means returning, perfection means returning to one's svarup. Svena means one's own, and rupa means form. Attaining one's own form. So then, elsewhere in the Upanishads, it's described that this attainment is very intensely blissful. It's so blissful, in fact, that one completely forgets everything else besides it. Rasam he vayam labdvanandi bhavati. That having obtained this perfection, one becomes very intensely blissful. And then, actually, the larger part of this verse in the Chandogya Upanishad I quoted, it gives this whole description of what that perfection is like. The main thing that it describes is it's like playing. There's a whole analogy, but it's like playing, and it's so intensely blissful and so intensely absorbing that one forgets. And then it also describes that one is there with different muktas, different, other individual perfected personalities. And everybody there is so blissful that they're completely forgetting their surroundings, so much so that they sometimes even forget that anybody else is there. They don't see each other. This is what's described in the Chandogya Upanishad. So that state, that attainment is so intensely blissful because our nature, the nature of the soul, is also, or is itself blissful, conscious and blissful, chid anandatmika. And the nature of the soul is blissful. Why? Because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, from which, like Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, from which expands, those souls, us, his parts and parcels, he himself is blissful, raso vaisaha. So raso vaisaha, and then right after this raso vaisaha is rasam hye vayam lodvanandi bhavati. So in the this comes up in the Taittiriya Upanishad, that Krishna, or the Supreme, is blissful, and upon attaining that, he is rasa. Rasa is a kind of, basically means a certain flavor of pleasure. But then one who attains that, one who attains him, also becomes intensely blissful, and, according to Chandogya Upanishad, manifests his original form, Svena Rupa, his Svarupa. In the Padma Purana also, this comes up in the, there's a certain section in the last section of Padma Purana that describes the nature of the jiva and all the 21 intrinsic qualities of the jiva. 18 intrinsic qualities of the jiva, and then Jiva Goswami, he adds 3 of them. But anyway, one of them, which is described in Padma Purana, is Dasa Bhuto Harer Eva Nanya Saiva Kadachana, which means that the soul is a servant of Krishna, is a servant of Hari, and Nanya Saiva Kadachana, and nobody else, and nothing else. So that is our original state. And upon attaining that original state, one becomes very blissful. And so when one knows this, when one just has this basic, you could say, knowledge, one really knows everything. One knows basically everything that there is to know. And his liberation, or his moksha, his freedom becomes very easy, actually. He doesn't have to go through yoga. He doesn't have to go through Brahman, because all of these things are ultimately meant to lead one to this platform of ultimate knowledge. In Yoga Sutras, there's one sutra. The goal of yoga is samadhi. That's the goal of yoga. So in the Yoga Sutras, it's stated, samadhi siddhir ishvara prani dhanat, which means that samadhi, the perfection of samadhi, is ishvara pranidhana, which is also one of the niyamas. Ishvara pranidhana means, literally, it's translated even by yogis, even by Mayavadis, as devotion to God. So the perfection of samadhi, according to yoga, the perfection of all perfection, is devotion to God.
Is it pranidhana?
Pranidhana. Yeah. Or no, sorry. It's, I think it's, yeah. Well, maybe it is pranidhana. Yeah, I think it might be pranidhana. Maybe my pronunciation's bad. So, and also, similarly, with realizing Brahman. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. He says, I'm the basis of the eternal, of the impersonal Brahman. So, when one realizes, just has this basic knowledge that one is Dasa Bhuta Harer Eva Nanya Seva Kadachana, then one realizes Paramatma, one realizes Brahman, and ultimately one realizes Bhagavan. Yavan Artha Udapane Sarvata Samplutodake Davan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmana Sivijanataha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who knows, just like as if you have a small well and a big well, the purposes of a small well can be served by a big well. So similarly, one who has ultimate knowledge knowledge of Krishna, he serves all of the other purposes of the Vedas. Krishna says, Vedaishya sarvairaham eva vedyaha, Vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. Krishna says that of all the Vedas, I am to be known. And then he says, Vedanta krid. He says, I made Vedanta. Vedanta comes from me. And that's why those who worship Krishna, those who worship the maker of Vedanta, don't have to undergo all of this difficulty to attain some kind of incomplete liberation. We're seeing here Hiranyakashipu, he's trying to become deathless. And just to even get somewhat close, just to get like in the door of deathlessness, what did he have to do? He had to undergo these just unimaginable, like not even like unimaginable, like actually literally unimaginable austerities. Like we can't imagine what it's like to have your entire body eaten by ants and keep your life airs in your bones. And then, you know, and that's not even to get actual immortality. That's just to become powerful for 5 years, which is what he got. He got some power and some opulence for 5 years. So Vedanta, real Vedanta, Vaishnava Vedanta, Bhakti Vedanta is easy. Why? Well, relatively speaking. At least in relation, it's much easier than that. But why? In Bhagavad Gita, there's this verse, Klesho dikataraste sham avyakta sakta chetasam. Avyakta higatir dukam dehavad biravapyate. That for one, Krishna describes, that for one who is trying to attain this impersonal feature of me, he has to undergo a lot of difficult. Avyakta higatir dukam. It literally means he has to suffer, actually. He has to suffer in order to attain this goal, because it's a very difficult goal to attain. It's very troublesome. In Madhvacharya's commentary to this verse, he describes that this is because, well, Krishna then says, Dehavad birvapte, because it's very difficult for one who is embodied. And then Madhvacharya comments that it's very difficult for one who is embodied because it's just something really abstract and kind of beyond our imagination. That's one reason. But another reason is that because Krishna doesn't really help you. Unless you actually approach Krishna and say, hey, I want to worship you, then okay, then you're in a relationship with somebody and there's some give and take. And Krishna's willing to see, you know, okay, this guy, you know, he's got some faults, but anyway, let me help him out. But if one denies that Krishna exists, if one denies that there is even a Krishna to attain, or says that Krishna is Maya or something like that, Krishna's form is Maya, then he doesn't really get the mercy of Krishna at all, actually. Of course, any result attained by any spiritual process is ultimately Krishna's mercy. But it's extremely difficult because you're not dealing with a person. And so there's no give and take, there's no relationship there that Krishna can work with. So they want all these different spiritual traditions, they want some result. Specifically, they want moksha. But Madhvacharya says that they actually don't get moksha. Although they're working toward moksha, they don't actually at all, none of them get moksha, not even the Mayavadis, not even the so-called successful Mayavadis. Actually, there's no such thing as a successful Mayavadi, technically speaking, because, well, yeah, there's the distinction between Mayavadis and Brahmavadis. There's such thing as you could say, a successful Brahmavadi. Brahmavadi means somebody who just kind of prefers the impersonal feature of Krishna, rather than actually, they acknowledge the existence of Krishna, but they just kind of prefer the impersonal realization of Krishna. So they become successful, but what is their success? Their success is attaining that impersonal feature of Krishna, but only for some time. So therefore, conventionally it can be called moksha, but really it's not actually moksha, because moksha means liberation. If you're in jail and they let you outside for an hour a day to go play around, free from the confines of your jail cell, that's not actually liberation, that's not actually freedom, because it's within the context of a greater kind of bondage. And then what to speak of the Mayavadis, those who say Krishna is not real, they just go to hell. On the pretext of their scholarship, and on the pretext of their intense austerities, and on the pretext of attaining moksha, they actually go to hell. So the followers of Shankara, for instance, the Mayavadis, they go to hell. They don't actually attain moksha. So if one approaches Krishna, then only is moksha actually within reach, or is actually even possible to attain. Real moksha means svena rupabhanishpadyate, means attaining one's own form as a servant of Krishna. And this form, this relationship, facilitates a kind of pleasure that is very dear to Krishna, that Krishna likes most, which is why this Bhagavan aspect of the Absolute Truth is the highest. Because it's most pleasing to the Absolute, it's most pleasing to Krishna, these different relationships and these different rasas. Even like Srila Prabhupada's pointing out in the purport, even the creation of the material world is ultimately for rasa. Krishna is known as Lila Purushottama. Different avatars of Krishna, or different forms of Krishna, are known by different names. One name for Lord Ram, for instance, is Maryada Purushottama, or the ultimate personality of rules and regulations of good conduct. So Krishna, he's Lila Purushottama. Means everything he does is for Lila. He's the ultimate personality of Lila, or pastimes, or relationships, or extrapolating a little bit, of rasa. So everything Krishna does, including expanding his parts and parcels of the living entity who are qualitatively one with him in the material world, is for pleasure. Just like we're seeing just this whole pastime of Hiranyakashipu and his, fighting with Lord Nrsimhadev. Ultimately, Vishnu didn't have to do that. He chose to do that. He chose to send Hiranyakashipu. Why? Because he wanted to fight. He wanted to relish that rasa, and that rasa is not available in Vaikuṇṭha. Of course, Vaikuṇṭha is perfect. There's nothing lacking in Vaikuṇṭha. But there's a certain rasa there are certain rasas that aren't compatible with the environment in Vaikuṇṭha, that aren't compatible with the environment in Vrindavan. So Krishna expands himself, and he enters into the material world to relish those rasas. And at the same time, Jiva Goswami gives the analogy that just like when you cook, if it's very cold and you're cooking for your own pleasure in order to eat the food, but at the same time, the fire from the cooking also alleviates the suffering of the cold weather. So in the same way, Krishna ultimately comes to this material world to relish rasa with his devotees, but at the same time, as a secondary, as a byproduct of that, you could say, these other purposes are accomplished, like annihilating the demons, like pritranaya sadhanam vinashaya dushkratam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge, establishing dharma and killing demons and saving sadhus, like this. Ultimately, these are byproducts, or even like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's described with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that his spreading of Harinam Sankirtan was actually a secondary reason why he came. It wasn't the main reason why he came. It was a byproduct of his coming. Of course, it was he did it intentionally, but It was a secondary reason. So he comes to this material world to relish these relationships, but ultimately we are enjoined by Srimad Bhagavatam and by our acharyas that we should get out of this material world and go to the Vaikuṇṭha planets, like Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport, where Krishna is enjoying spiritual mellows. And this is the real definition of moksha, because, the proper definition of moksha, because moksha, it implies, even when the Mayavadis and the Brahmavadis and the Purvamimamsakas and the Uttaramimamsakas and the yogis and the Sankhites, they're all talking about moksha, they're thinking that it's some kind of eternal situation, but the only eternal situation is one's relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. So that's moksha in the real sense of the term. So by approaching Krishna in his Brahman, in his Brahman feature, by approaching Krishna in his Bhagavan feature, and by understanding his Bhagavan feature from Srimad Bhagavatam, and understanding how to properly worship him from Srimad Bhagavatam, then one doesn't have to go through all these horrible austerities and all these different kind of like risky situations, because one is properly situated and their liberation is guaranteed. So it's 8:31. I will just read very quickly about Narahari Sarkar Thakur. I'm just going to read this real quick, and then I probably should have just read it before class. It seems more organized. So, okay, Narahari Sarkar Thakur. Before meeting Mahaprabhu, Narahari had written many Sanskrit and Bengali songs about the Vrajarasa of Radha Giridhari. Later, he and Gadadhar Pandit always stayed with Lord Chaitanya. Narahari used to please the Lord by waving a chamara or a peacock fan. Srila Thakur Bhaktivinod's Gaura Arati song glorifies this. Narahari Adi Kori Chamara Dulaya. Narahari Sarkar's family was the pride of the Vaishnavas. By their influence, all the people in Sri Khanda became Vaishnavas. The entire village turned into a branch of the desire tree of love of God. Since the time of Lord Gaurachandra, Sri Khanda has been a preaching center for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. One day, Sri Nityananda Prabhu came to Sri Khanda and asked Narahari, "All right, we know who you are, so where's the honey?" By his mystic power, Narahari turned a pot of water into super sweet honey for the Lord's pleasure. Narahari serves Lord Shyamasundar in Vraj Lila as Madhumati, a pranasaki who supplies mouth-watering honey for Radha Damodar and their dear ones. Sri Narahari Sarkar's very being was saturated with Krishna prema. No one can fathom the depth of his devotion and pure love for Radha and Krishna. In Vraj, he is Radha's dear Saki Madhumati, a storehouse of sweetness, and in Gauranga Lila, he is Narahari, a storehouse of Radha Krishna prema. From Sri Chaitanya Mangala. Narahari Sarkar's books, Parakalpataru and Krishna Bhajanamrita, include wonderful intimate songs praising Lord Gauranga and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Shripad B.V. Narayana Maharaj said, Narahari composed many ambrosial nectarian songs that overflow with the sweetest devotion. In Sri Krishna Bhajanamritam, Narahari teaches how to worship Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Lochandas Thakur and many others were disciples of Narahari Sarkar Thakur. Though not accessible, his samadhi is in Radhakund. Sri Narahari Sarkar Thakur ki jai. Huh?
Why did he ask him for the honey? Where's the honey?
Well, I guess because he's Balaram. Yeah. His honey wine. Okay, Krish had a question. Sorry for the kind of disorganized presentation of this class.
No, that's all right. It's a great class. Thank you. Yeah, so you mentioned that the Mayavadis ultimately go to hell. And I was looking for it on Vanapedia, but I couldn't find it. There was somewhere where I read that Srila Prabhupada's describing them as attaining imperfect Krishna consciousness, and that that Krishna has mercy on them and he sets aside a heavenly planet for them. So correct me if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Well, I'd like to see the reference for that.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's blaspheming Krishna, saying that Krishna's not real, and that ultimately Krishna does have mercy on them, Krishna has mercy on everybody. But I'd like to see that reference that Krishna sets aside a heavenly planet for them, because, I mean, they don't even want that, is the thing. They're like in their own philosophy, they don't want existence with Krishna. And actually, if you look at their commentaries, they think it's offensive. And there's one in Gyaneshwara's commentary, Bhavartha Deepika to Bhagavad Gita. He actually quotes, or in the commentary to 1866, he's talking about how some people say that this means that one retains his individuality. And he says there's nothing more offensive and nothing more, there's no greater, basically saying there's no greater rascal than one who tries to retain his individuality in, liberation. Because, why? Because he's saying that it's just like a queen, if somebody, or if a commoner marries a king or a queen, then they don't retain their lowly status. They become royal. So in the same way, he's saying it's offensive, and there's no great. Basically, he's saying that there's no greater rascal than one who tries to retain his individuality. So Krishna's very offended by these things, saying that basically Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and all the Vrajvasis are basically rascals, and saying that, and what to speak of that? I mean, they're saying that Krishna himself doesn't even exist, that Krishna is just fake, So Krishna, I mean, now again, there is a distinction between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis. There are Brahmavadis, and somebody who acknowledges to an extent the existence of the Bhagavan feature of Krishna, but they just prefer or they emphasize the value. It's you could say a misplaced value over of the impersonal feature over the Bhagavan feature. So that's a genuine, that's genuine to an extent. It's a genuine, or you could say an authorized form of impersonal realization. But Mayavadis means those who say Krishna is not real, who say Paramatma is unreal, who say Bhagavan's unreal, only Brahman is real. They go to hell for just being offensive, because it's just it's just not, one thing is just not grounded in Shastra practically at all. They juggle all kinds of words and things like that. So I mean, if you can show me a reference where Srila Prabhupada says that that Krishna sets aside a heavenly planet for them, I'd be very surprised to see that, because Srila Prabhupada ultimately said that we should fight these people. So
I'm also honestly quite perplexed by that idea, though, of Mayavadis going to hell, or all Mayavadis going to hell, being punished by Krishna by going to hell. Because I mean, they have a philosophical misunderstanding. I mean, I would understand, it would be more intuitive to me if by being a Mayavadi then, or by being an atheist, by not accepting Krishna, by being offensive to Krishna, because due to that, then I'm engaged in sinful activity. But to have a philosophical misconception, and then offend Krishna in that way, if that's deserving of hellish punishment, like going to a hellish planet, to me, honestly, doesn't really make a lot of sense. That it seemed that the hellish planets are meant for those who are acting like physically, like viciously in this world, not just like they have a misunderstanding.
But it's even if but the distinction.
And if they go to if we say that Mayavadis, because you don't accept Krishna as God and you follow Vedanta, but you don't, you have a misunderstanding about God, then you must go to hell. What hell? What hell do the Mayavadis go to? Is that described? There's a specific hell for the Mayavadis.
I'd have to look into it.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't really.
But one thing is the distinction between Brahmavadis. Brahmavadi, you could say, is a philosophical misconception. For instance, Mimamsakas Purvamimamsakas, Uttaramimamsakas, they don't go to hell. Yogis don't go to hell.
But even someone who accepts that Krishna is lower than Narayana, is technically that you could say it's offensive to Krishna. I mean, so many of these things are offensive to Krishna, but it would seem unreasonable to many that would be then warrant suffering in hell, because you don't understand Krishna's position. Yeah. You don't understand the actual ultimate personality of Godhead.
Yeah, but then blaspheming him and saying he's Maya is different. It's blasphemy.
I think that part of it is because they're preaching it, and therefore they're hurting other people in that way by giving them false. Because Prabhupada was talking about that when he came, and these rascals, they're reading Bhagavad Gita, but they're ignoring Krishna, the Mayavadis. So they're doing direct harm to others by misguiding them in that way. But I was thinking of that famous verse in the Kaivalyam Narakayate. Now, of course, that seems to mean that it's hellish for devotees. That's something else. But it just resonates. That's exactly Kaivalyam Narakayate. Kaivalyam is Mayavad merging into that's hellish. But that means for the devotees it's hell. So that's not exactly the reference we're looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll look into it. I can try to find some.
Yeah, it especially sounds a lot to me like, people are turned off, not saying that because people are turned off by it, therefore it can't be our philosophy, or part of our philosophy, but people are turned off by, Christians saying that another denomination, they're going to hell because they're blaspheming Jesus, thinking that Jesus is like this, but he's not like that, and our sect knows he's not like that. Yeah. And all these other sects, they're going to hell because they don't understand Jesus like we do. Yeah. And so it sounds something like, even if you can go to some of these churches, you can say, what if someone's a pious person and they pray to Jesus every night and they do all these things, they never engage in this activity, then in the end, and the preacher will say they go to hell because they blaspheme Jesus, because they don't accept this particular sect. So, and then many people would be like, oh, come on, like how is that? If it's the case, then what kind of God is that? That's someone that, and then you can say, no, but that is vicious. It's blasphemy of the Lord, and it's confusing other people, and they're drawing them away from the Lord, But it's, at least to some, and I might say to me, it doesn't seem like a satisfactory conception of God. But it's something to look into. I don't know. And if Mayavadis go to hell, to what hell do they go for that offense? Is a question I would have. Sorry, Richard.
Can we say that Mayavadis, their perspective, this is hell because of also in Bhagavad Gita in 16th chapter, Krishna says that this person I lead it to the bottom of the universe, and so. This is tendency of blaspheme devotees, and Krishna is direct way to the hell, and they not possible another way, if only some mercy of some devotees, maybe.
Do you want to respond to that? If not, I'll say something.
Yeah, you can say something.
Okay, well, Krishna said, first it is there that those who are offensive to devotees, Krishna casts them away from devotees because that's there. So and that's kind of a hellish situation. We accept that being out of, Vaishnava association, devotee association, that's a hellish situation in that sense. But in Bhagavad Gita, it seems that when those, these, it's described like the demons, and how they're like Krishna. What's the word? Cast them away, but there's something else also for the demons that. Anyway, it's not looking good for the demons, but and then part of the demonic attitude is rejecting God, but it does, at least I think someone can make a case that that's not the only feature of the demons that's then leading to this this serious response from Krishna. That they're actually also viciously harming people, destroying the world, and so on. So those activities like that karmic activity seems to be like especially warrant like a hellish
Yeah.
reaction. Chad wanted to say.
This is unrelated to what we're talking about, but so you're saying that the material universes were created primarily by Krishna to partake in rasas and Lilas? And it seems like as far as rasas go, he can experience that in the spiritual kingdom. But then there's also the jiva, the jivas as far as wanting to be proprietors and enjoy themselves. And I was just wondering where all that falls into why, what's the primary reason for the material universes?
Yeah, well, primary is kind of difficult to... The primary reason Krishna does anything is for his own satisfaction, for his own pleasure. Now, he kind of takes advantage of the opportunity because there's some jivas who want to go to the material world. They want to leave, they don't want to be in the spiritual world. So so Krishna has the opportunity then, he takes the opportunity that, okay, I'll create this world and then use it, like with Hiranyakashipu, he uses it to relish certain rasas that aren't really compatible with the spiritual world. For instance, fighting and killing. Krishna likes that kind of, it's play fighting really. Krishna likes to play fight, like that. But you can't do that in Vaikuṇṭha. You can't do that in the spiritual world. It's different because, there's nobody there who's like envious of Krishna who would fight him. So, like that. That's the primary cause, you could say, or you could say the internal reason. Primary cause kind of indicates or kind of implies like a what would you say?
The foremost.
Yeah, the foremost.
So first of all, was your question, what's the primary reason for the material world existing? What's the primary reason for Krishna going to the material world once it exists? No, creating it.
Yeah, creating it. Yeah, so the primary reason, my understanding is that the primary reason is, well, it's a difficult one.
To facilitate living entities' free will, it seems, which you could say is part of this enjoyment.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like facilitate living. It's to facilitate the living entity's free will, but facilitating the living entity's free will is also for his enjoyment. You know what I mean? I guess yeah.
Going to the material world for his enjoyment, to fight demons and so on. That's not
Yeah.
the reason for creating the material world.
Yeah.
speaks about it that it created for
Yeah, it's the primary reason ultimately to facilitate our free will, but the internal kind of reason is it's ultimately within the greater context of Krishna's relishing rasa with his devotees. And he does that in different ways with the material world also. Just his relationship with the people who are in the material world, there's certain things he kind of likes about that.
Could you repeat the example you gave? It was a good example. I think that's what he was trying to think.
The example that Jiva Goswami gives is that just like if you're cooking on a wood fire, you're cooking for your own pleasure, but then at the same time, as a secondary result of that, the heat from the wood fire warms you up and relieves you of any kind of suffering from cold weather like that if it's cold outside. That's the example Jiva Goswami gives. So like that, concomitant kind of results.
Well, would it be fair? It seems like that comparison that Jiva Goswami is giving is referring to why Krishna goes to the material world, not why the material world exists.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't say it.
I see.
Yeah,
Say it.
that's why I didn't say it. But yeah, I said it because you asked.
No, I
Yeah.
know. So I'm saying now it was a good example.
Yeah.
So as you said it, and that good example seems to be the good example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's fair to say.
Yeah.
One thing in relation to yeah, Mayavadi's going to hell and topic. I was thinking about the Sri Upanishad, and there's a verse in the Upanishad, text 12. It's an interesting verse. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so to the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. And then in the purport, Prabhupada gets into different things. So you say, what is this darkest region? It says darkest region of ignorance. Anyways, Prabhupada gets into the purport, and at the end of the purport, he says that the Lord states that as soon as one reaches Him, in other words, the path of salvation from the material clutches fully depends on the principles of knowledge and detachment. Okay, going on. The pseudo-religionists have neither knowledge nor detachment from material affairs, for most of them want to live in the golden shackles of material bondage under the shadow of philanthropic activities disguised as religious principles. By a false display of religious sentiments, they present a show of devotional service while indulging in all sorts of immoral activities. In this way, they pass as spiritual masters and devotees of God. Such violators of religious principles have no respect for the authoritative acharyas. All right, going on, and it says, these rogues are the most dangerous elements in human society. Because there's no religious government, they escape punishment by the law of the state. They cannot, however, escape the law of the Supreme, who has clearly declared in the Bhagavad Gita that envious demons in the garb of religious propagandists shall be thrown into the darkest regions of hell. Bhagavad Gita 16:19-20. Sri Upanishad confirms that these pseudo-religionists are heading toward the most obnoxious place in the universe after the completion of their spiritual master business, which they conduct simply for sense gratification. Now you could say, who is Prabhupada talking about? But he does mention the word envious there. Envious demons. So demons means what? Demons means someone against the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what it means to be a demon. Right?
I would say so.
And envious, what is that? So what does envy means? Means again, you want what Krishna has,
Their position.
or you want their position, or there's some malice there. So there's many people who fit that category, whether they're in the garb of, sannyasis, or whether in their garb of hippies or whatever. There's many people who fit that category. And even if they're following, because we would say, can someone be following the principles of Sattva Guna and still be a demon? Yes. Because you could say Mayavadi sannyasis, they're quite sattvic, right? Yeah. But can one be a sattvic demon? Yes. It's possible.
Even Hiranyakashipu in many ways was a sattvic person, the way he speaks.
Because you could, you could be against the authority of the personality of Godhead and still be in mode of goodness. And you could say, okay, well, does that warrant going to hell? Well, I don't know. That's what we're saying. Well, I mean, there's some indications here in this verse of the Sri Upanishad, because a lot of these, you could say, and also Prabhupada talks about it. He says the religious propagandists. He's mentioning the propaganda as being very dangerous, and also in the Sri Upanishad and some other verses, it talks about so-called spiritual masters and their followers. Descending. So, I mean, Prabhupada talks about a lot of people. Like, for example, he mentions, there's this case where Prabhupada talks about this person who's following Varnashram, and he was, taking prasadam at somebody's home. And then he looked at that man and he told his disciples, he said, you see that man right there? He could follow Varnashram all he wants, but still go to hell. And devotees were like, oh, what? Because Varnashram's like this kind of a pious thing and a good thing and all that, right? Mm. But if it doesn't become transcendental, if it doesn't become Krishna conscious, then in the material world things degrade. I mean, you could only remain so much on the platform of piety. So anyways, that's another thing. It's another kind of category. But anyways, I was just thinking of this in relation to that verse.
Srila Prabhupada gave a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 6:2, 9 to 10, which is right after the Ajamil pastime where Ajamil was saved from going to hell by chanting the holy name. So in that lecture, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the Mayavadis, he said they mislead their followers to hell. Now, of course, hell can also mean different things. Hell doesn't necessarily mean the hellish planets. But hell can also mean hellish existence, which means animal life, which means, some really abominable kind of state of existence. It doesn't necessarily mean like the Yamadutas are going to come. But even then, in order to take an animal body, you have to go to hell first.
Yeah. Another thing is that, because it could seem quite cruel. You know, why is Krishna doing this? Why would he do that just for, it's like a thought crime or something. It's like you said, it's like it almost sounds like a Christian concept.
Yeah,
you just have a thought crime and then you go to hell. I mean, one thing is that we say the punishment is for the rectification of the soul. And so, but then the question comes up, okay, well, is the amount of punishment, because when we talk about punishment, the amount of suffering that is inflicted on a person who's being punished, it has to be equal to the wrong they did, or else the person's considered sick. If you inflict too much pain on someone, or punishment that they don't deserve, you're considered sick. So then people have a hard time sometimes. It's like, well, you did such a small thing. Like even, you could say a Brahman, right? You take second initiation, right? Then you go become an alcoholic. Bhagavatam talks about the 5th canto. What happens in hell? I mean, because so some people, they think, oh, this is a little bit too much. But anyways, it's a whole discussion.
Yeah. It seems to me also that generally people with such a philosophy, anyway, now we're just kind of talking. But
it's like temporary, that's another thing.
That's what I was
the difference between the Christian and it's temporary, and ultimately the soul does get
and it's within Krishna's ultimate elevation or elevating everybody. I was also thinking that generally such a Srila Prabhupada described this impersonal, I think it was Srila Prabhupada. It might have been Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but I'm pretty sure, at least Srila Prabhupada quotes it, that this Mayavad is the last snare of Maya. So it's the last thing, and it's extremely strong, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mayavadi Bhasha, Shunile Hoi Sarvana. Just by hearing Mayavadi Bhasha, just by hearing Mayavadi commentary, Sarvanash, everything's finished. He says everything's ruined just by hearing it, because it's like, he doesn't say sex desire is the last snare of Maya, This Mayavad is even seems the indication is that it's even more powerful than sex desire, So to be cast down into like some, hellish condition of life, whether it's a hellish planet or whatever, might be, and again, I don't have Shastric basis for this, but an idea is that, this hellish planet is for drinking, this hellish planet is for, illicit sexual activity, this hellish planet is for stealing, this hellish planet is for all these different things. But if one has this extremely they're absolutely fixed on this, in this particular consciousness, then they need some really intense kind of pushing, just like with other bad habits. There needs to be some kind of you could say remedial, or some kind of remedial measures to show the person that this isn't proper, show the soul or put the soul on a different track. So ultimately it's Krishna's mercy. But anyway, that's just an idea. It's not anything conclusive.
I guess you could say getting punished so heavily in hell, someone would think, all right, well, I guess you shouldn't be doing that activity.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't mean to make light out of it, but you just think, oh man, that's the last time I'm. Forget about the beer, man. Don't make me light out of it, but anyways.
I mean, it would make sense that most Mayavadis, okay, certainly now, like what Mayavadi wouldn't go to hell based on their activities, like, but it would make sense that anyone claiming to be a Mayavadi right now would have a hellish destination, because just their inability to actually follow Vedanta or follow Mayavad philosophy, they're actually just going to be engaging in sinful activities anyway. And especially if you take on...
A lot of sinful activity.
Yeah. And that's one of the criticism of Mayavad philosophy, is that you give this standard where there's no real spiritual taste. So they don't actually have this higher taste, which lets them give up the lower taste. So then it's just a matter of time till they fall back down to the lower taste, engage in abominable activity, and go to hell. So that's there. And then especially, even if you don't do that personally, if you're a Mayavadi guru, then now, if you're teaching Mayavad, then you're accepting the role of a guru, and now you're accepting all of the sinful reactions that these people who've now learned from you, and that come from these people. And if you teach, even if you don't fall back down, then if you're sharing Mayavad philosophy, which then leads other people to try to follow Mayavad philosophy, they don't actually have higher taste. Therefore, if they fall down back into sinful activity, you're actually to blame for that. You actually suffer the sinful reactions, and therefore, for being a Mayavadi guru, it seems like you're pretty, you're kind of going toward hell, or going to hell for that, because of the mess you've caused for other people, because of the sinful activity. But it seems like, again, and it's the kind of thing that anyway. But it's more clear to me when it's the sinful activity. It's that because it's Mayavad philosophy, then you engage in abominable activity. And that abominable activity is what is being described in Bhagavatam as bringing you to hell. That's what's like specifically being.
But Mayavadi philosophy in and of itself, I mean, you can because the thing is, Mayavad Mayavad itself, as opposed to Brahmavad. Brahmavad says, Paramatma is ultimately real, Bhagavan is ultimately real, Brahman is ultimately real. My value is on Brahman. Mayavad says, Paramatma is ultimately unreal, Bhagavan is ultimately unreal. The only real thing is Brahman.
I know, but
so
I don't disagree with that, but it's not.
No, but then to go through the Vedic literatures and say Vyasadeva is, like all these things are wrong. This whole book is wrong. Srimad Bhagavatam is completely wrong, and to use the Vedas on the pretext of being a so-called Vedic scholar and taking the Vedas and saying that this is wrong, then that's a separate thing. It's a different thing.
Would you then go so far to say that every single person who takes birth and every single person who dies, leaves one's body without accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, goes to hell? If they're a perfect Buddhist and so on, they go to hell.
But if they go through the Vedas and they say...
But by extension also, if you're a perfect Buddhist, okay, let's say not a meat-eating Buddhist, you're a perfect Buddhist, you also reject the Vedas, and you reject what's that
Buddhism,
you also reject the Vedas.
The result of Buddhism is not real.
So every Buddhist also then goes to hell after that life. Everyone who dies with a Buddhist conception goes to hell after that life. That's because their conception is that you reject the Vedas.
That's my understanding.
Yikes. I mean, maybe there's.
I'm not saying it could, some kind of hellish existence. Yeah. Because
I know, but some kind of hellish existence, and if you kind of qualify it like that, well, certainly any life without Krishna is a hellish existence. And
but like a particularly kind of hellish existence. Not. It might not be like hellish planets. But it seems even Srila Prabhupada in that purport even seems to be just indicating that it could be the hellish planets, but depending on the person, of course. But they become degraded.
Yes, Mayavad degrades. I accept that. Yeah, I don't know, and maybe this kind of like this idea actually is correct, and it's just hard for me to grasp because it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. That it's like it's just on your philosophical conception alone that brings you to hellish punishment.
Aside from, you see what I'm saying? It's not just the philosophical conception,
but even the acceptance and rejecting of the Vedic literature as holy, even that is still if it doesn't actually affect your actions after that. It seems like for the most part it will affect your actions.
Well, what I'm saying is the action it leads to blasphemy. Is what I'm saying.
What sort of blasphemy? just saying it, just thinking and saying blasphemy?
Saying, yeah.